Wrestling with wrestling's past and present.
How old were you?
I was -3.
JR is trying to contain Jim Ross.
McFlurry,
It's Mick Foley. Do you see any of the aggro crag? Was any of that left over?
No, unfortunately not.
No?
I'm taking some of that home.
Definitely not is the barn burner that Leaf Cassidy and Tiger Ellie Singh was, but we'll leave that there.
We digress.
God, I hope that storyline ends soon.
And 6 to 8 weeks later, they mail you a freaking magnet.
Yep. You may know him as the Red Rooster.
Because it's still real to me, damn it.
He kept making out with his wife. It was weird. So then, I'm waiting for them to put the Selena Vega on a pole match.
And I mean, Big E's got Whale performing in his entrance, so I feel like
Wale.
they would.
It's Wale.
Wale. I don't listen to. Okay, well, I don't listen to him, so I apologize to Wale.
This is in the mail, my good sir. No, it wasn't. Paul.
I feel like Vince is just gonna have them team together and be like, have them called Woo Bro. Like they're just gonna be the Woo Bros. Like, anyway.
Giving us a reason to come here and listen to ourselves talk.
Absolutely, and
And then you can listen to us too. We're off to a rough start.
Strap on and balls only on wrestling past and present.
This is Gangrel, the Vampire Ward, and you're listening to Wrestling where wrestling's past and present.
This is Wrestling with wrestling's past and present. I'm Tim Kurt.
I'm Roland Fulis.
And I'm Mongo.
And today it is episode 81, and it is all about TNA Slammiversary 2005, which was the first ever Slammiversary pay-per-view, and it happened to take place on the 3-year anniversary of TNA.
And before we get any further into the show, I just want to mention Don West was the color commentator on this show, and it came out earlier this week that he has brain cancer. So I just want to, before we get any further into it, I just want to mention that, prayers to him, his family. Hopefully things go smoothly and he has a speedy recovery and whatnot. But to talk more about the show, I think watching these shows and watching Impact from any year, a lot of people, it wasn't as mainstream, so a lot of people didn't get to see some of these superstars that didn't, and I'll say superstars because I'm used to saying it, but they didn't get to see these wrestlers in WWE on a big stage because they might have been lesser names or thought to be lesser by Vince. So it's kind of nice to go and watch these because there's some guys on Impact, TNA, whatever you want to call it, that could have been big stars in WWE, and AJ Styles is proving that right now.
Yeah, and to echo your sentiment before we go, absolutely thoughts and prayers out to the West family and Don West. And, I personally, when I think TNA, I always think of Tenay and West. When I think of WCW, I think Shivani. When I think AEW, I think Excalibur and JR. They're the voice of TNA, and like you said, it was a good alternative because we didn't have that alternative for a while. From 2001 to 2005ish, there wasn't a lot of selection because they had their weekly pay-per-views leading up to this. But I think it was a good show, and like you said, I think it's a good alternative to showcase like the talents that weren't given the shot but could have taken the ball and rolled it. Samoa Joe just came back to NXT, and he's kind of shown that they kind of faltered with him, but he's a star. And not to spoil it, we get it further, but this is his debut pay-per-view, and it shows why he was a star and why he was one of the originals in TNA.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of names on this show that you recognize that we'll get into, a lot of former names from WCW and WWE that went to TNA to make a living. So it's not like it's a bunch of no names here. I mean, they do have your original TNA originals as well. But yeah, I mean, this is why we like to cover all companies in wrestling, because we're not just about one company. We're about exposing you to all different brands, because we think it's important to cover all these because they've all had their impact in wrestling.
Titular line.
Pun intended or unintended, either way. But yeah, no, I totally agree that it's tough because ROH and like certain companies, New Japan are not as accessible. I mean, every pay-per-view show that we do of Impact, I tout how cool it is that they have an app that literally, like I said, for the year it was like $72. Like the amount of content you get. I mean, I know it's not the network, but I mean, for that kind of money, how can you not if you're a wrestling fan?
Like we were talking off air, they have some of those cool specials and the biographies like an AJ Styles. So if you don't know some of these wrestlers, this Impact app will help you kind of look at this and hopefully take a deep dive with us, because we like going through this, because we learned some things that we might have just heard the whispers about or seen a YouTube clip or just had a mention of. But I mean, that's the great thing about going through wrestling. It's got such a rich history, and it's got such a bright future. And for wrestling, for what it gets for crapped on from the old guys like Cornette and things like that, of how it's changed and evolved, it really hasn't evolved. It's just more eyes are getting on different products because a certain product is getting stale. So this was kind of a good preview to there's alternatives out there. So you might not have to like one company style, like, Shakara or Chakra, I can never say it correctly, is kind of a goofy, all over the place gimmick, or, guerrilla wrestling is just, one style of wrestling. TNA was more of the flippy floppy spot fest that people call it, but I think that's insulting, because there was a lot of athletes that showcased themselves in these pay-per-views. And Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, excuse me, not Gorilla. I totally misspoke on that one.
PWG.
Let's get right into it. There are 10 total matches to discuss. The first one is the pre-show match. Went about 4 minutes. It's a tag team match between Simon Diamond and Triton. They're going to get the win over Sonny Siaki and Apollo. Sonny Siaki and Apollo have been featured on some of the other TNA shows that we've covered. This might have, I don't know if anybody really cared about this match. Its purpose is to get the crowd going. I don't know how well of a job it did of that. Obviously, we're not able to watch this one. But this, to me, on paper, doesn't seem all that exciting.
Yeah, probably not too much here. Like Tim said, it probably just to get the fans going. But it's hard to imagine, especially in the early stages of TNA, if any of the fans really knew or cared about any of these guys. And that's no offense to the 4 guys in this match, but you got to remember, for the longest time, they were in the same building, whether it was the Impact Zone or whether it was the Asylum. So you had regulars, but then you also had some other people sprinkled in that were just there, especially when they were in the Impact Zone. They had people that were coming from the amusement park for free that would just come in because it was air conditioned to get out of the sun to watch a show. But you also have regulars too. So, maybe some of the regulars, liked it. Like Tim said, they were kind of pushing Apollo and Sonny Siaki. So I, like Tim said, it probably wasn't much here.
It's akin to the NXT Full Sail, essentially college campus, the crowd that went there weekly, even before, if you watch Fighting With My Family, the Page movie that they released a few years ago, they show a good mock-up of a small crowd for them just kind of perform in front of it. And kind of what it was. It was a small crowd, didn't hold that many people at the Impact Zone. Still didn't get my friggin' aggro crag. But it was a cool environment. And yeah, like you said, maybe they weren't really known. I mean, Simon Diamond had a cup of coffee in ECW for a while, but he really wasn't known. And we covered RoboCop, Triton, whatever you want to call him, Terminator, all the different gimmicks he had. And just, they were kind of just faltering there. So I can see what's the pre-show is kind of everyone's filling in the seats, getting their merch from Don West before they come in there. And, like Roland has mentioned in the past, that dude was a hustler. If anyone gets the hustle, loyal, respect tagline, it shouldn't be Cena, it should be that guy, because that is hustle, respect. He would hustle shirts, hustle the show. I remember he had those QVC specials for a while where they would run their DVDs or VHS tapes of TNA's greatest hits, for $19.99, I'll send you this tape. And you're like, I'll buy it. And I did buy some because he was a good salesman. And that's another cool thing that this pay-per-view did, is they had highlights throughout the night of their 3-year history on the fan voted moments, which hopefully I didn't steal your thunder, Tim, but I thought that was a cool little input to maybe get viewers on the product at the time who didn't see it.
You thieving bastard.
So we start off the actual show with a X Division 6-way match. Obviously, if you know TNA, you know the X Division is kind of their marquee division. You have Shark Boy going to pick up a win against Amazing Red, Delirious, Elix Skipper, Jarrell Clark and Zach Gowen. You may remember Zach Gowen, the one-legged wrestler from his WWE days, being mistreated by Brock Lesnar and Mr. McMahon. I thought on paper that this was a good way to start the show, but they didn't give him like any time. Only just over 6 minutes. I thought these guys could have done a lot more if they were given a little bit more time. I thought it would have been a much better way to get the crowd going and invested in the match. You have a lot of talent in the six-way match. I was a little disappointed that it only went 6 minutes.
Now that the show started, so here's my thing. It was a 6-minute match, but they crammed every high spot they could have in like 6 minutes. So it just, even at one point, Mike Tenay is like begging for the camera to get the wide shot. He's like, get the wide shot, pan out, because there's just so much crap going on. And like Tim said, on paper, it wasn't, a terrible match. And on paper, you're like, wow, this is going to be a good way to start the show. But it unfortunately was just a cluster, and based on the fact that they gave them no time. It was cool to see Shark Boy get the win. That was pretty neat. To know what Shark Boy would go on to be with the whole Stone Cold gimmick and stuff. That was obviously that was his niche, and ended up being what was able to, I guess, prolong no offense to him, a mediocrity laden career where he was never really given much of a push. He was just always kind of there. And again, I'm not trying to insult him. I'm just saying he was there. The crowd liked him, but he never really did anything with them. And I don't know if that was TNA not wanting to do anything, or if that was him not necessarily wanting to be there enough to have something. I don't know what it was, but the crowd loved him. So I'm surprised they didn't do more with him.
This is a lot like the Orange Cassidy of AEW. It's the comedy gimmick, and I'm not trying to say it's a bad wrestler like you said, but it's just he was fun. I remember, the last TNA pay-per-view talked about how we didn't get to see Shark Boy. He was on the pre-show, and I'm glad that our listeners, if they watch us, can see Shark Boy, because that's what it was. He was just fun. He high spot me. He's a grown man in a shark onesie, basically. So, I mean, there's not much you can. I mean, you can't put the strap on him. Like, I mean, who's going to take Shark Boy as the World Heavyweight Championship seriously? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I've killed Roland because he's doubled over laughing.
Well, because every episode we happen to say strap on now. So I just...
Oh, we got to take a drink, right?
So yeah, that's what got me. We're like 5 minutes into the episode, and Mongo's already laying strap on out there to everybody.
Well, you have a shark doing stunners in the ring, so we got to have something to kind of distract from this. But can I point out, I'm surprised Roland didn't, Tim, the puns, my God, the puns that were made in this match were great. Zach, I'm saying Zach Gowen, he's got a one-legged single drop kick, obviously, and he's got a leg up in this match. Like, those puns were just killing me. Like, I know I'm like the king of dad jokes, came in second place in national competition. Thank you very much. But those puns were killing me.
When I can't remember who it was, pinned him, they're like, and he hooks the leg. It's like, well, yeah, you can't hook both. Like,
we're not trying to make fun of him. It's just those puns were like, yeah. I could only imagine being Zach Gowen. Like, he's living his dream. Like, in all seriousness, this dude's living his dream. He is talented. Like, that moonsault is so fluid. But it was just like, I was dying because Tenay and West are just literally hitting those little zingers, whether they meant to or not. Like, it was funny. It was like, it's a single leg drop kick. Obviously. Like, it was just so deadpan that I was dying.
That's when you would have had like Excalibur being like, well, yeah, he's only got one leg. But yeah, it was. I will say this about the last thing I will say about all this is that Zach Gowen, kudos to him, because that guy has made a career of getting his ass kicked. Like Tim said, the Brock Lesnar beating the crap out of him, and then even some of the moves he took in this match. I mean, he got whipped around pretty good. So kudos to him.
Also, fun fact, Shark Boy was being sued at this time by a movie called Shark Boy and Lava Girl. So I don't know if this was a win to kind of throw it in their face, but he was being sued by that movie because of the use of the name. And Amazing Red remind anyone of anyone else, because he reminded me of Ricochet, like that kind of style. So I did a little deep dive, and he actually owned a school, and he trained Private Party, who's currently in AEW. So Amazing Red is one of the trainers of Mark Quinn, Isaiah Cassidy, Private Party. He's wrestled Ricochet and the Young Bucks. They've had matches. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. That's why his style, because he reminded, if you watch this match, it literally looks like Ricochet is wrestling based on the way he's moving around that ring.
This is why we have Mongo on the show. He does these deep dives for you guys. Roland and I, we just, go to Wikipedia and that's it.
Hey,
Glad to be of service sometimes.
if it's not on Wikipedia, is it really a real thing?
That's true.
Did it really happen?
C's get degrees, and so does in Wikipedia, baby.
Next up is a singles match. You have Shocker, insert jokes there, getting a win over Alex Shelley in 10 minutes. This match was okay for me. I don't remember a whole lot about it, to be honest with you. It didn't really do anything to captivate my attention. And it's kind of a theme, and not to get too far ahead, but this show really kind of started off a little bit slow for me, and then it picked up towards the last 3 or 4 matches. So this one, I think was a perfect placement on the card. I'll give it that, but other than that, didn't do a whole lot for me.
They were kind of playing up the old vet versus the young upstart is really what the storyline was. Shelley was 22 at the time. Think of that. So this was in 2005. So obviously this was 16 years ago. Shelley is still relevant today. And Shocker, they said, made his debut in 92. So, it's almost a parallel of careers, where it was towards the tail end of Shocker's, the beginning of Shelley's, and it kind of made, this is before the Motor City Machine Guns. This is before all of that. This is, Sabin. This one, Sabin still had long hair. This is way before all that. And, we'll talk about Sabin, a little bit later on our show, but Shelley at 22, damn, was he good? I know he's had some injury, history throughout his career, and he's retired a couple times and come back and stuff. He's one of those guys that if he had gone to WWE and they had used him correctly, which, you have a 1 in 85 chance of that actually happening. But he could have been a, intercontinental. I don't know if he would have been a top tier. He could have been an intercontinental or a United States guy. He could have been a guy that could have had really good matches with a lot of people.
The problem is, Vince just doesn't understand his style of wrestling. And that's why, like you said, this is before Motor City Machine Guns. But this is why, I brought up Motor City Machine Guns as one of my favorite tag teams, because he has that style. Like you said, he puts on a clinic in the ring. For his style, if you ever want to learn the hybrid lucha libre, cruiserweight, traditional wrestling style, that's Alex Shelley. And he makes spots that normally would probably look goofy and silly look fluid. It's almost like, the best way I can describe it is he has anti-gravity shoes. So he's sliding around the ring. Darby Allin kind of does that same thing where they almost float around the ring. It's uncanny. Maybe it's because I'm a 300-pound plus guy, but the way they're moving around the ring is not natural. I feel like that someone's gonna offer them a red pill at one point, take this pill to see how far the rabbit hole goes, because there's no way these guys are human with some of the moves they're performing. And Shocker, he was what it was, and for the match, what it was okay. It just, like Tim said, it's kind of forgettable because Shocker had some good offense, but really Alex Shelley shined in this match. That's what it was. Is he shined, and I think they wanted Shocker to kind of, like you said, give him the rub, put him over. But I think Shocker just kind of was going through the motions. I'm not trying to solve him. It just felt like he was just there.
If I can get my mute button to work today, that'd be great.
Owens, what did you do to Tim?
I know.
So full disclosure before we go any further, we've had some echoing and feedback issues. So we're all trying. This is the first time we've ever had the issue. So we're all trying to mute after we're done talking. And usually my gimmick is that I forget that I'm on mute. Well, Tim right there tried to get off of mute and he couldn't. It wouldn't let him get up. But it's so just, if there's any banter about the muting, we're trying to make a better quality show for you guys. So
yes,
bear with us.
Grizzly Bear, grrr. It's also late at night, folks. Leave me alone. Bear Country, AEW, newest signed stars.
Yeah. Berenstein Bears.
Cheap plugs.
Next, the Bears. Next up is another singles match. You have Ron Killings, is R-Truth, going to get a win over the Outlaws with Billy Gunn in 7.5 minutes. I have some problems with this one. And here it is. You have the whole 3-Live Crew gimmick, which is Conan, BG James, or Road Dogg, and Ron Killings. And the whole thing is BG James aligned with 3-Live Crew, or is he going to go with the Outlaw? It's just a storyline that's been done many times. And I don't know, it just felt reused and rehashed here. The other problem I have with this is Ron Killings gets the win. And I don't think the Outlaws' shoulders could have been any more off the mat than they were. It wasn't even acknowledged. It seemed so blatantly obvious that they were gonna make a big deal of it and recognize it, and they didn't. I think his whole upper body was off the mat. So I have some issues with this one. Match itself, okay. But just a lot of this, I didn't like the storyline, and then the finish just really ruined it for me.
So the only thing that saved that was that the referee was on the other side. But yeah, no, when he rolled them up, he was sideways, he wasn't even. Yeah, so I totally agree. The only thing that made this even more interesting was that later on in the night, Conan would team with Road Dogg, still not knowing what was going on with.
That's because not 1, not 2, but 3 live crew.
And shout out to Conan for coming back for AEW, being the DJ during the Stadium Stampede match. So totally relevant there. But yeah, no, this like Tim said, the beginning of this show had a lot of promise, and it was just kind of there. It doesn't really pick up. I mean, the match itself wasn't terrible. You can count on. There's 3 things you can count on in this match. R-Truth goes for a scissor kick and either hits it or misses, which he misses. Billy Gunn's going to hit a famouser, and then there's going to be some issue with Road Dogg. Those were the 3 things that happened, and that sums it up pretty much. I mean, that's what it was.
Oh, it hurts my soul to hear it called the famouser. Sorry. I don't know, but it's always going to be the rocker dropper to me. So I don't know why. I've always even when Billy Gunn called the famouser or whatever, but you're both right. These matches, both, not to skip ahead, but the Billy Gunn versus R-Truth and the Road Dogg match later on, they both felt why do we need 2 matches for this storyline that we aren't really not invested in? And that's what it felt like. Both these matches are telling the same story. Is there dissension? What's going on? It's this isn't you doing your episodic TV. And I understand you're trying to get eyes on the product. You're trying to get people interested, but when the clip that comes afterwards of Raven debuting, beating up Jeff Jarrett is more exciting than this match, that's kind of an indicator.
Yay, it worked that time. All right. Next up is a tag team match for the NWA World Tag Team titles. You have the Naturals, who are Andy Douglas and Chase Stevens, getting a win over Team Canada, which was represented by Eric Young and Petey Williams. Outside, they had A1 Sauce and Coach D'Amore. I've mentioned this.
A1 Sauce.
Oh, okay. It was a joke there. You scared me. The way you were acting, I thought we were doing having more technical difficulties here.
No, the only difficulty, I was trying to comprehend A1 Sauce. I don't know. I wasn't expecting it. So this is why Tim loves me, because I always bring random ass humor that he doesn't expect or want to expect.
Yes.
Well, to be fair, it seems like once an episode now, Mongo either says something wrong, pronounces it wrong, or misses something. So it seems like that. So I'm on mute every episode at least once. Mongo has his moment where he pronounces something wrong, whether it's whale or whatever. And then I don't know what's your thing, Tim. I don't know.
I'm perfect. I don't screw up.
Except when you leave me in charge of audio distribution, because that was a mistake.
He has no recollection of that.
I don't remember that.
It was not wonderful.
No,
yeah,
it wasn't.
About as memorable as that last match we just talked about, huh?
I mentioned this before on one of the other TNA shows we did. Like the whole Team Canada thing Team Canada storyline has been overdone way too many times in multiple companies, so it's a little old for me. The big tease here was the Naturals had some special legendary person by their side. It ended up being Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart throws a microphone, and that causes the win, which kind of turned about fair play because A1 and Coach Diamore were interfering throughout the whole match. It's a finish you've seen before many times. Jimmy Hart, yeah, there's a little bit surprise factor there. But again, the whole Team Canada storyline just, it's been done. Didn't do anything. This wasn't anything new and exciting for me.
And it's a megaphone, not a microphone. Tim.
Mr. Perfect.
There's my one screw up, all right?
Anyone else notice that when they handed off the megaphone, though, they completely missed it with the camera, so the camera had to kind of like awkwardly go backwards to try to capture it?
Yeah, their camera work was not very good on this show. I will say that. Like going back to the first match where Tanae's like begging them to go wide. He's like, "Go to the wide shot, go to the wide shot." So yeah,
he's like getting rid of his megaphone, and like the camera's completely looking somewhere else. It's almost like, I don't know if like someone's 5-year-old son was like operating the camera and was like looking at all the different things in the arena, but I feel like it missed all these important camera cuts. And I guess we are spoiled with WWE being such a machine, because for all the crap that I give WWE, one thing they are good at is they are top notch in production usually when it comes to, besides 150 camera cuts they do, when they actually film things, at least you get the right angles 99% of the time. You know, when Kevin Dunn's having his moments and he switches 300 times and you throw up like the Blair Witch Project, that's a different story, but
Tim's on mute still. Tim's on mute still. See, it's
I clicked the damn button.
Well, so okay, full disclosure, anybody that uses Zoom, you have the little mute things on your screen, right? And I use a headset, and with my headset I mute it via the button on the headset. It does not show up on there, so when I do it, I have an excuse. What's your excuse, Timothy?
I clicked the damn button and it didn't work.
faulty equipment. That's my
yes.
You know, I may have a battle with the English language, but Tim has a battle with technology. So we found what Tim's thing is.
Yeah,
Tim is the Bruce Pritchard of technology on this show.
And I'm the producer of the show, so we're in trouble.
Oh,
No, you do the behind the scenes stuff. It's just the button clicking or something.
he's the Kevin Dunn exorcist of Wrestling with Wrestling Past and Present podcast.
So does anyone have any extra AOL DVDs? So I think we might be running out of minutes for Tim over there.
Oh man. Let's move on. Next up is a singles match featuring Sunday Dutt. It's against the debuting Samoa Joe. He is debuting from Ring of Honor into TNA. The match was 6 minutes long. Here's my problem. If you're building up this guy as this monster, this should have been a squash match, I think. I think it should have been a 1 to 2 minute squasher. Sunday Dutt actually got a pretty good amount of offense in here, and it wasn't, it was decent. But for the build up, if you're trying to bring this guy in as, to steal a Paul Heyman line, the next big thing, I think this one should have been a squash match. So that was my only issue with this one.
The other issue is that I don't think if they had done it that way, they should have picked somebody else to do it. You don't want Sanjay Dutt to job to Samoa Joe necessarily. So and there was storyline of AJ and Daniels and Sanjay all saying that they wanted Joe to come to TNA. So, I mean, that was, I guess, the reason why they had Sanjay do it. But yeah, no, you're 100% right on the aspect of if you're going to have Joe be this, Joe's going to kill you persona, he should have murdered the guy, no matter who it was. And it should have been quick. It should have been like an Ultimate Warrior style match where it was, Joe comes to the ring, 2 minutes later, he's leaving. Like that's, I totally agree with that. I will say the finish was, as we know, it was somewhat predictable where Joe hits the muscle buster, hits the coquina clutch, which at that point wasn't even the coquina clutch. It was still just a rear naked choke. They didn't know what to call it. but that, it's similar to Roman Reigns using a guillotine now. When you're a badass, you use something to put your opponent out.
Yeah, I can't say much more than what you guys said. That it should have been a squash, and I just think, like Roland said, they didn't want it to be a squash. They wanted Sanjay Dutt to get some offense, but it doesn't really make sense to build up the monster heel because it almost shows he's vulnerable already, and that's like the last thing you want to do if you're trying to build your beast incarnate to steal another line. That the other person can get some offense in, but if they get too much offense in, then it's not going to be believable when they start running through the division. And that's essentially what Joe's going to do here in TNA is run through the division, run through the company. And, they were hyping him up the second he came out of the tunnel. They were hyping him up every move he did. And I still love the Muscle Buster. I know he gets shit on for it because Tyson Kidd suffered an unfortunate injury due to it. But I still think it's a really cool looking move because at the time it's not something you really saw. And he sold it, and when he hit you with it, or he, like Roland said, he choked you out, you got choked out. Like, and I don't know if anyone listens has been in MMA or been in legit fights. When you get choked out, you're out. And that kind of choke, that guy that big, I don't think I'd want him choking me out because I think I'd pass right out because he looks like he's putting all his forearm strength into it. But I do think it was an overall decent match, but I just think because they had a 3-hour pay-per-view, they just didn't know what to really stick there. So I think that's why we got the 2 3 Live Crew matches. That's why we got, a non-squash match. It should have been a squash match. I think this was their first 3-hour pay-per-view. They didn't really know how to stack it. And that's so far the theme I've noticed in the ones we've covered is they're not really good at stacking the card a lot of times.
And then at one point during the match, the Iranagi that Joe gave to Sanjay Dutt just about killed him. I will say it folded him up pretty good. It was reminiscent of some of the stuff we saw with Orange Cassidy when he got folded up by Pac earlier before the pay-per-view, before the triple threat match with Kenny Omega and Pac. It was that, like, he got folded up and it's like, ooh, ouch. But yeah, he handled it well. And, I think they were caught between trying to keep Sanjay looking legit and trying to make Joe look like a badass.
Next up is another singles match. You have Bobby Roode with Coach Dan Moore representing Team Canada against Lance Hoyt, or Lance Archer now. Bobby Roode's going to get the win after a lariat in about 7.5 minutes. Again, it was an okay match for me. It wasn't anything special. I remember Lance Hoyt's tramp stamp, like we've talked about many times on this show. But other than that, it was an okay match. Again, I don't really like the whole Team Canada thing. I am a big fan of Bobby Roode. But yeah, it was just there for me.
You mean you don't remember getting to see Scott D. Moore's ass? Like that was the highlight of the match for everybody in attendance. I got to see the Pillsbury Doughboys fat ass. And to be fair, I will give credit to Scott D'Amore. He actually hit a moonsault. I mean, he missed, but he fully rotated on a moonsault, which is pretty impressive. Almost as impressive as Lance Hoyt doing it. But this definitely was more gaga at the end to steal a Pat Patterson WWE phrase. It was more gaga at the end, and the match itself wasn't bad, like Tim said, but it wasn't very memorable either. And unfortunately, that's what the theme for this pay-per-view is that a lot of these matches were pretty good, but they were just they were just there, and they weren't bad. It was just they were just there. And this is one of them where 2 great workers that are still going today. I mean, Bobby Roode, one of those guys. And here's what I don't get too. Like, I know we shit on Vince a lot and whatever, but how do you miss on a guy like Lance Hoyt? I mean, they had him, he was Lance Archer, or Vance Archer, or whatever the hell his name was. And, how do you miss on a guy like that? I don't get it. I don't know.
It's like their current problem. They just fired Braun Strowman, and the reports coming out today are that Karrion Kross was backstage at SmackDown working a dark match with Bronson Reed. It's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. You keep bringing all these larger athletes, bigger athletes to somewhere else. You use them for like a minute, and then Vince changes his mind more than most people change their underwear. It's just insane. And like you said, that is a great theme of this pay-per-view because it was a lot of good matches, but there wasn't a lot of storytelling, and the stories they were telling just weren't really that interesting. But from a wrestling standpoint, this pay-per-view was solid so far. Usually we say this is when it picked up or this is a great match, but it's not like it was really a letdown. It's just like you both said, it's just thematically and investment wise, it was hard to invest in this pay-per-view because you're like, well, why am I rooting for person A over person B? And this match, like I'm personally rooting because, like Roland said, I love Bobby Roode. I think the glorious gimmick he had in NXT was one of the best gimmicks. Lance Archer has been killing it in AEW and New Japan, and I kind of hope he gets a better push in AEW. So they both can go, and it's not that they can't go. They both showed their skills in the ring. The problem is, it's just kind of like you said, booking. It's like, what do they do with them? They just kind of stuck them there in a match that didn't really match anything besides Scott D'Amore scarring a brief life with his pasty white ass.
Yeah, it could have been Mae Young, so you never know.
Look, WCW 2000 broke you. Please don't break me with Mae Young's tits again. I can't.
I wonder, full disclosure, I wonder, like, so they have this creative meeting and they're like, hey, so at the end, we're going to have Scott D'Amore pretty much get pantsed on pay-per-view, and the fans are going to love it. It's like, no, they're not. It was, obviously it's a way to get cheap heat, but like I said, the most impressive thing was the fact that he nailed a moonsault. Had there been a guy there, he would have fully rotated perfectly, landed it good. And kudos to him for that, because it's funny because Mike Tenay kept saying how he was like 300 pounds, and he said he was 350 pounds, and then obviously he's a big dude. I mean, he's not like, he's not Braun Strowman big, but obviously he's at least 250 anyways, and for him to do it, it's pretty impressive. And like I said, to see Lance Hoyt, to give him the credit he deserves, he nailed that damn thing when he did it. I mean, a guy his size, what's he, like 6'8", 6'9", whatever, 6'10", whatever he is, for him to nail, and like I said, he does it now in AEW where he kind of does like a old school version of it where he kind of walks the tightrope, holds him, and then does a springboard almost moonsault, onto the guy standing. So, that's one thing I will say, is that even though some of these matches weren't the best per se, the athleticism definitely shined through in a lot of these matches.
Well, you're right. To kind of go back to your Scott D'Amore doing the moonsault, he was a wrestler. They brought up a few times, and he was a wrestler. He wrestled for WCW for a while as basically a jobber to the stars, and I'm not trying to insult him, because anyone who takes a bump in the ring, has done more than I have in the ring. But it's really he was a glorified jobber. He was like a Dwayne Gill. He was one of those wrestlers that he was just kind of there to get beaten up. I'm trying to pop someone like Roland, so it worked for me because
you got me.
Dwayne Gill is Gilbert for people who don't understand them. But anyway, yeah, he was a wrestler. I think he won a title at one point, some independent promotion, but I know he basically jobbed out to the stars for a while. And then once TNA went, yeah, I'm sick of losing, I'm just going to become like a booker and agent. So he must have just had a good wrestling mind or understood the business, because now he's, pretty top up there and, Impact through Anthem. So he's still going strong today as a booker agent, / on-air commissioner. Like last night, he helped fire Kenny Omega's uncle there. Don Callis. Geez, I can't talk tonight. So, he's still relevant in storylines today. Thank God it's not Team Canada, because like Tim said, overplayed gimmick that I'm all set seeing too.
Well, there'd be nobody left. There'd be Petey Williams, and that's it. Like everybody else is, well, no, Eric Young's back, I guess, but still.
Yeah, but he's in Violent by Design right now, so I don't think he will do anything else.
I wonder what A1's doing today, like right now.
Yeah, right.
Probably eating a steak.
Yeah, steak
They
sauce.
should put him with Heavy Machinery.
There you go. Yeah, he could have been Otis's new partner when they shit can Tucker.
Speaking of, anyone check out that meme that I found? I had to throw up on the page. Otis looks like the bad guy from freaking Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and I'm like, I can't unsee this now.
You're not wrong. I showed, so Amber, my wife, didn't see SmackDown when he like debuted his shaved face. I showed her a picture and she was like, "Ew, why?" That was her response to that. So yeah. I don't know what the point of that was, but maybe it makes him more stealthy. I don't I don't know.
Next up is a tag team match. We have America's Most Wanted, represented by Chris Harris and James Storm. They're going to pick up a win over 3 Live Crew, BG James and Conan with Ron Killings in just under 7 minutes. Again, we talked about it earlier with the Outlaw versus R-Truth or Ron Killings. It's just a continuation of that storyline, the tension between BG James and the rest of the 3 Live Crew. So again, that's what the whole thing was. Billy Gunn comes out, and that to go back to the bad camera work, Mike tonight had to say we can't see it in the shop, but here's Billy Gunn, so it kind of ruined the prize for the viewing crowd. So again, it just that storyline's been overdone, I think it kind of took away from this match.
Imagine being Kip Sop, Billy Gunn, and being called the Outlaw and getting to be on pay-per-view twice in one night. Imagine that, because that's what this was. It was just like Tim said, it was over. It's overdone. It's the standard, will this guy turn on the guys he's with for the guy that he used to be with? And there used to be a team and all this happy stuff. And unfortunately, for it to make sense and be more relevant, you need more of the BG James to stay with 3 Live Crew and not end up going with who would then become Kip James, because he was his brother. Anyhow, it just, and I will say this, they also teased the dissension between Chris Harris and James Storm as well. So that was apparently more or less 2 teams that were having issues facing each other. Was really the gist of this match. And again, it was another quick one. It was like you said, like 6-7 minutes. It wasn't, they're not giving they're not giving any of these matches much time, which is probably unfortunate. They probably could have wiped away 1 or 2 of these matches and given some of these matches 12-15 minutes, and it would have been a better quality match. And yes, there would have been less people on the show, but the match quality would have went up.
I mean, in all honesty, the fact that DX basically took over the night is also kind of another show of, this was one of their big criticisms, is they just pushed some of these XWE guys, and not the right XWE guys. I mean, you said they could take away a match. They could have easily put an R-Truth in the King of the Mountain match later tonight, giving him the shot he deserves. Had, Billy Gunn interfere in this match, and then the storyline still would have been further without having the Billy Gunn Ron Truth Killings match. It just didn't make sense. Like you said, there was a lot of things just kind of thrown at the wall. Here, you get 6 minutes, you get 6 minutes. Everybody's getting 6 minutes, essentially. Like,
they're getting the Oprah treatment. You get 6 minutes, and you get 6 minutes, and you get 6 minutes.
I'm glad you caught where I was going with that one. And also, I know I joke about it, but why does it seem like every pay-per-view we start doing deep dives and listening to, why do they always have like gimmick infringements out in the obvious? I mean, he literally did the New Age Outlaws shtick. He gets in the ring, he's like, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and he changes it to total nonstop action, brings to you its soon to be NWA champions. Then he, at the end, but I will say it's a lot cooler. He goes, not 1, not 2, but 3 Live Crew. So he does like the whole shtick with like a slight different twist on it. It's almost like if you go to the store and you're like, oh, I really want that cherry cheesecake, and they're out and they're like, we put strawberries on it. It's the same thing. Like, no, I know it's red, I know it's cheesecake, but I wanted cherries. It's one of my problems with TNA. It's like they had such potential. This is the kind of stuff they did that kind of pushed a lot of casual fans away.
LOL TNA.
Next up is a 3-way elimination match for the X Division Championship. You have Christopher Daniels going to retain over Chris Sabin and Michael Shane in 17 minutes here. To me, this was the match of the night. I thought this was an excellent match. Plenty of time here, 17 minutes. Michael Shane's going to get eliminated first at the 11-minute mark, and then Christopher Daniels going to pick up the win at the 17-minute mark after the Angel's Wings move. So, but it was really entertaining. I was actually invested in this match, and I wasn't really invested in the previous matches on this card. And Christopher Daniels, is kind of on the end of his career now, but still relevant today in AEW. But yeah, this was, if you had to pick one, I know we try to do this would be my one match to watch from this show.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This match, it had the storyline from previous pay-per-view where Tracy turned on Sabin, went with Matt Bentley, Michael Shane, whatever you want to call him, and it it carried that storyline on, but it also made them fight for something more because they both wanted the X Division title that the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels had. And I feel like, and this is a hot take and it may not be correct, but I feel like Christopher Daniels might be the biggest name to never make it to WWE. That could have been something, like could have been really, I mean, there was rumors that he was going to be the higher power at one point, but Vince was like, well, he's like 5'2". We can't do that. He's too small, damn it. And it didn't work out. But again, he's another one of those guys that could have had a believable run in WWE just based on the fact that he's an athletic son of a bitch. The BME, the best moonsault ever. I mean, that he's even now at, he's got to be pushing, mid 40s, he's still doing it. And, it's impressive when he does it. I mean, Mongo mentioned earlier how Zach Gallen was so fluid with his moonsault. I mean, the BME, the best moonsault ever for a guy to literally springboard from the second rope to the third rope. And he's not necessarily a high flyer either. That's the thing about Daniels, is that he's not a Rey Mysterio. He's not a guy that's known for it. He can do it and he does it well, but he's not known for it. So, kudos to him. The Angels wings he delivered to Trinity, holy hell. That was a neat spot. And, they played up that Trinity was with Sabin more or less as a business proposition to try to screw over Matt Bentley, which what that turned out to be. And like Tim said, this match was the match. Had the last match not been so gimmicky and clustery and hard to follow, that might have had a shot at it. But this match was definitely the best pure wrestling match of the night, hands down.
No, I agree. I'm glad they didn't open the pay-per-view this, because you imagine what a letdown the rest of this pay-per-view would have been if this was your opening match, because of how good it was. That's one thing they pioneered. TNA was the X division. This was their division. This was their hybrid cruiserweight / high flying / technical wrestling. And by God, like you said, that Angel's Wings, it's probably one of the sickest finishers. And it's not really too impactful, but it's just the way it's delivered. It's the setup. And like you said, the BME, it's still, I think that when people mimic it today, it doesn't look as good as when he does it. I see a lot of wrestlers trying to do it, and they always kind of stall in that second rope before they go to the third one. He almost like skips the second rope, but he still hits it. It's like he tiptoes it. Everyone remembers the tiptoe catch by Julio Jones in Super Bowl 51. Yeah, Christopher Daniels does that on the fucking ropes when he's doing a moonsault. Like, it's just, his toe drag swag is incredible when he does it. And then he floats in the air for like a good 10 seconds, it feels like, before he lands. So the right person went over. It was a great match. This, to me, I don't know which gimmick we're on Michael Shane, if it's Matt Bentley, Michael Shane at this point, because I feel like his gimmicks changed way too much. I don't know. But if you take out Shawn Michaels' cousin, which they did pretty early, Daniel Sabin, this match, 100% match of the night, showcases two TNA originals that would go on to have Hall of Fame careers. And if both were used properly in WWE, could have been Hall of Famers there too, because they're both very talented, part of great factions, can do it single. Like, it's whatever match you put him. Christopher Daniels freaking wore Curryman at one point and still pulled that gimmick off too. So he could go. This proved it. My favorite match as well. I know we say this all the time. If you could pick one match, only watch one match, this is the match you should watch from this, because this is what TNA was, and this is the potential they had to really capitalize on.
So if you have 20 minutes to kill, I would say like 22, because the TNA interface, the Impact Plus app interface, is not very good. It rivals Peacock. So if you have like 22 to 25 minutes and you want to watch a banger of a match, go back and watch this.
No, I agree, absolutely. Now we make it to our main event, which is the King of the Mountain match for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. I'm going to try the best I can to explain the rules of the King of the Mountain match. Basically, it's a reverse ladder match where you have to hang the belt, on the little hanger thing. But in order to get eligible to hang the belt, you have to score a pinfall. And if you get pinned or submitted, Then you have to go into the penalty box for 2 minutes. I don't know if you all follow that, but that's the rules. So your participants, you have Raven, AJ Styles, Abyss, Monty Brown, and Sean Waltman. AJ Styles is going in as a champion. Jeff Jarrett was supposed to be in the match, but there's a storyline where he beat up a fan and got arrested. So Larry Zbyszko, an NWA representative, put Raven into the match. So it's really confusing and hard. Like Roland said, it's really hard to follow. It was too many rules for me. I really did not like this one, to be honest with you. Raven gets the win, becomes the new champion. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't like it.
And to be fair, I might have said that off air. I may not have said that during the recording. But yeah, so at one point, I was convinced that you had to score the fall to be eligible to hang the belt like right before. But then like halfway through the match, they mentioned that Waltman was the only one that hadn't recorded a fall, which makes him not eligible to hang the belt. So like it was a clusterfuck is exactly the best way to describe it. It was just a cluster. And so apparently at any point in that match, if you scored a pinfall, you then became eligible, which they don't say that. They just say that you have to record a pinfall. So in my head, I'm like, well, if Monty Brown pins somebody, he then can, he is the last person to pin somebody. He's the only person that can hang the belt. In my head, that's what I thought. And it turns out that wasn't the case. And it was just the definition of a cluster. It's exactly what it was. And the match itself, again, it was horrible camera work for this whole match. I feel bad to keep crapping on whoever was in charge. I don't know who was in charge of being the executive producer, but you suck. Whoever you missed so much stuff in this pay-per-view, and you did such a disservice to the performers in this match and in this whole pay-per-view. When you have the commentator saying, hey, pan out quick, like something's going to happen, you suck at your job. Like, sorry, you are bad. And that's the one takeaway from this whole show that I will say is that had the camera work been better, I would have rated this show a little bit higher. I'm not going to go into the rating yet. We'll get there, but it was cool and unexpected to see Raven win the match. I will say that. I don't think anybody going into this match thought Raven was going to win the match. So that was kind of neat. AJ Styles ends up having a really short run with the belt, which obviously once he goes on throughout the years, he would have to hold the belt more times and whatever. And to go back to the X Division, so if you listen to Jeff Jarrett's podcast with Conrad, I would say that My World with Jeff Jarrett is probably the best thing going right now. He mentions the reason. Well, right. I'm not going to toot our horn. I'll let other people do it. And if you guys saw the video from Vince Russo earlier today or yesterday that we posted, he tooted our horn for us. So I don't have to do that. But anyways, Jeff Jarrett mentioned that the genesis of the X Division was for them to have a belt that had the TNA name on it, because the belt in this match was the NWA championship. It was not the TNA championship at the time. So again, no one would have bet money that Raven was going to end up the NWA heavyweight championship, or heavyweight champion rather, at the end of the night, walk away with that belt. He had quit the promotion earlier, and then Zbyszko puts him in the match because Jarrett gets arrested. I will say that storyline wise, I think they got this right, because nobody expected it. Again, it's the opposite of WWE, where you can pretty much predict what's going to happen. No one predicted Raven winning this match.
And that's the beginning of their shtick. That Slammiversary was always their tagline was anything can happen after this. So this was kind of them building towards the anytime, because that's what got you to order Slammiversaries, because this was their, I hate to use this term, but this was their WrestleMania. Like AEW has their Double or Nothing. The WWE has obviously WrestleMania. This Slammiversary is for Impact. So they had to have some sort of shtick. And it's weird, first of all, to see they came out without Jeff Jarrett, because he was in a lot of these matches. He was in the inaugural match. He was in the follow-up match next year. And I don't know why they did such a bad job explaining the rules. Tim, you did a really good job. Bravo, by the way. Because this is the second time they've done it. They should have really explained it, because as a casual fan, if you don't really pinch those rules, like Roland said, I thought the same thing the very first time I ever saw one of these matches. I was like, oh, so how long are you eligible? Only that 2 minutes? You must be only eligible for 2 minutes when they put on the penalty box. Okay, so they have 2 minutes kind of ladder. That makes sense. Wait, why do you mean Waltman's the only one that's not eligible? So it does confuse you, and that takes you out. And once you get taken out of a wrestling match, it's hard to care about it. And I'm glad that Raven won too, because that's what made you kind of re-care about it. Because if, let's face it, if X-Pac goes up and grabs that belt, no one's ever ordering a TNA pay-per-view ever again. No offense, X-Pac, no offense, Sean, whatever you're calling yourself. You winning the belt's not what helped the company. Raven helps because then people are going to tune in next week to see what happens with Raven, what direction is the company going to go in. Like you said, Roland, Jeff Jarrett said, they needed their own branded belt because this is when they had the partnership with NWA. And, that'd be like, Darby Allin winning the NWA, title at a, AEW pay-per-view. It's great for Darby Allin, but it doesn't really help your company. So I think, the match before helped their company more than this match per se, but this match also gave that shock factor of tune into our pay-per-view because you got to drop $50 to watch this. We got to give you something to watch. And I'm still annoyed with Monty Brown. I know I said in the last TNA show, stop calling him this mega football legacy. Seriously, he was on a losing Super Bowl team for the Bills. He was on the 94 Bills that lost. He was on the Patriots practice squad in 96. He didn't really do much. Lance Archer did more in the NFL than freaking Monty Brown and didn't hype it up as much. Freaking, what's his name? Boring Corbin did more in the NFL than this guy did. It's just, it annoys me to no end how much they're like, he was in the NFL. I don't care. You don't have to say it. Look at Moose. Moose has a very similar skill set and body type today. Just say he's a monster and he's going to destroy you. I'll believe it. He's a big dude. But I mean, I couldn't believe how much I think they were trying to make you think he was the winner, but realistically, Raven, AJ Styles, and Abyss were the only ones I cared about or wanted to see win this match, because if X-Pac or Monty Brown won, I was going to be done right away.
That spiral tap off the top rope through the table on Abyss was sick. I want to make sure we point that out. That was a really cool high spot where, AJ, I wish that more people got to see this AJ, got to see where he honed his craft. A lot of people now get to see what he has become. But when he was this AJ for the, 7-8 year run he had in TNA, or might have been actually longer than that, the TNA run that he had cemented that he could be a main event star. And he did so much stuff that nowadays a lot of people have trouble replicating, and it's amazing. He's a once in a lifetime talent, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a fan, I'm wearing his shirt. I'm saying that because I appreciated him back then. I was, I went to one of the shows, we're in New Hampshire, and I went to one of the shows they had at the Hampton Beach Casino Ballroom where they had a smaller ring. I got to meet him, Daniels, Borash. I got all their autographs. It was awesome. But that was in 2009. This was this was 4 years before that. So, AJ is still going today, and kudos to him for the ability that he had and the ability to showcase what he could do back then when WWE and WCW to a point passed on him, because he was in WCW for a cup of coffee, and then WWE just let him go. And it took him, 15 years to get back.
No, absolutely. And that's why you got to watch this TNA stuff, because some of the stars of WWE today own their craft to, quote what Roland said there. So that is our rundown of Slammiversary 05. I'm going to give this probably a 5.5 rating. I thought a lot of matches were just they were okay. The X Division Freeway, though, was the best match of the night. So that saved the pay-per-view for me. And again, it was a big cluster, the main event. I was not a big fan of the main event. Yeah, you did have the surprise factor of Raven, but I think the rules of the match really overshadowed that. So I'm going to give this one about a 5.5 rating.
Well, and it was funny too, because they mentioned about how Larry Zbyszko was going to hold on to the belt, in between and all this weird shit. And what's funny about it too is that they didn't really have many spots where the belt was involved until the end, which was actually really cool, where AJ dropped the belt and then they made it seem like Waltman was going to give it to him to hang it. Why on God's green earth would Sean be like, here you go, hang the belt up? The match itself the psychology of it made sense. But yeah, the rules and how to follow it and who was eligible and who wasn't and who hadn't used their team timeout and who hadn't done, like, it was a clusterfuck. It really was. And I think had this been a traditional, like, make it a reverse ladder match, that's cool and everything, but like, you don't need a penalty box, you don't need pinfall crap. Just the first person to hang the belt wins the damn thing. That's all you have to do. Like, that's literally that's all you have to do. That's it. Worst case, here's another thought of it. Instead of doing it that way, make it that you have to unhook it from this one and hang it on that one. Like, it doesn't. The penalty box thing and the scoring a pinfall thing made this match such a cluster, unfortunately. Like, so okay, you hit a guy with a finishing move, and then you have to somehow be upright in the penalty box for 2 minutes. Like, it doesn't make sense. But anyway, so yeah, no, I agree. Somewhere around 5, and it's just because of poor booking and time, and then the poor storyline and not being able to follow the whole King of the Mountain match. But the athletes and the matches in this show could have been so much more had they been given more time, or had the matches been laid out differently.
And to go on that point too, I agree. I give it like a 5.5 or 6, purely for the wrestling standpoint. I'm going to add into what you said earlier and what we said throughout the show. Production was shit, so that takes away a lot of this too. I understand. Looking back, this is their first major pay-per-view, blah, 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 but it doesn't age well. It's understandable when you watch a pay-per-view the first time, or you watch a major show from a company the first time. You expect hiccups, glitches. Everything. Is going to have glitches. You're slave to technology, blah, 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 blah. But like you said, when the announcers are calling out you're not doing your job, like, they need earpieces then. There needs to be a producer in the truck that's like, dude, camera one, why aren't you on? Like, it's almost embarrassing. Like, to think that I looked it up while we were talking. It was $50 to buy this pay-per-view in 2005, which is roughly like $70. So, like, nowadays. So you're saying that you're going to have someone shell out between $50 and $70, and this is the quality you're going to give them. It's not worth the money, and people aren't going to repeat business. You can always get someone to buy your first. It's repeat business is what's going to keep you successful. You could have 1 million views, 1 million streams, 1 million listens on your first anything, a product. But can you repeat that, and how sustainable? And if this is what you put out there, that's why I think a lot of the audience filtered off, because like, well, I'm not paying for that again. And unfortunately, this is the time where Pirate Bay and a lot of those torrent sites really started popping up, and people are streaming it. And that's also what killed them is, you had WB, who at the time, 2005 was a really good era in that wrestling. So people were paying for the pay-per-views. This one, people were watching the weekly show, but I don't think people, unless you're a hardcore fan, are paying for this, because this was the production quality. And it's sad. Like you said, someone should have lost their job for this, because it was just straight embarrassing.
So that is our rundown of TNA Slammiversary 2005. Coming up for you guys next week, we're going to go back to AEW, cover the first ever Fyter Fest from 2019, featuring the unsanctioned match between Jon Moxley and Joey Janela. So really looking forward to covering that one for you guys next week.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Here's the thing. We're going to try to do our best to steer clear of WWE for a little bit, if at all possible, just because we feel like we've done a lot of it, and we feel like the fans like to hear less of it. Obviously with SummerSlam, Rumble, Mania, Survivor Series, we're going to do our best to cover that stuff. But right now, full disclosure, the WWE product sucks, and the TV's hard to watch. It's hard to get through, especially a 3-hour show on Raw. It's a joke. They need to do something. I don't know what that something is, but the show's bad right now. So to go back and watch, Fyter Fest, which was really the infancy of AEW, to feel again, kind of like TNA was back then, a true alternative to the machine. It's going to be kind of a retrospective on that, and it'll be really cool to do. And before we go or go too far, I also want to thank Vince Russo for his shout out, and I'm going to put him on the hot seat right now. I've invited him through Twitter to come on our show. If he does actually listen to our show, which he said he does. So hopefully he hears this. Maybe he listened to one episode and that whatever. If he hears this, this is a second invite to come on our show, even if it's only for 10 minutes, just to shoot the shit with us, talk about a few things, and do whatever. We would love to have you. It would be amazing to have you. Thank you again for the kind words. It was awesome to hear. And I know some people are hot and cold on Russo, and same with me. I'm hot and cold on certain things, but there's no doubt the contributions this man had to the business, especially in the Attitude Era.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I couldn't agree more. I'd love to pick his brain, because as much as I joke or rib on him, it's like anything else. I just feel like he went with it, when he told, hey, make sure you listen, I'm gonna put you in a poll. I'm glad he went with it, because that popped me, like, for all the crap I give him, his wrestling mind is still there. I mean, he wouldn't have been in the business as long as he was if he didn't have knowledge, and his knowledge is very valuable. And I'd love to pick his brain and ask questions about times he was there, or maybe get some inside things that maybe the dirt sheets got wrong, because that's the problem. A lot of the information we have is from dirt sheets, and dirt sheets can and will be wrong. As Dave Meltzer famously says, plans change. So we absolutely love that. And we'd also want to say thank you to everyone who's continued to listen and support us. Like I said, I wasn't there from day one. I got to support my two friends, Roland and Tim, from day one, listening to their episodes, then joining a year later. I've had the time of my life. So I appreciate everyone who's, listening. Our audience is growing every week, so I appreciate it. And please make sure wherever you're listening, just tell people. That's the best way you can help us. Like, we're not asking for monetary, contributions. We're not asking for anything more, but just, hey, I heard this really good podcast. Just check it out. Just search www.PAP and wherever you download podcasts, or go to www.pap.com. Even if you just direct someone towards us, that's appreciated, because, the more we can get the word out there, the more we can help produce content for you. Full disclosure, I suffer from a lot of anxiety, which makes me very introverted, and it makes me very, keep to myself. I've had the time of my life talking to my, two good friends about wrestling every single week. And I hope you guys enjoy it, because that's why we laugh, we joke. We had audio problems tonight, but we made it a hell of a show, and we have fun talking to each other. And I appreciate this platform, and thank you guys very much.
And let's point out that if anybody saw the cameo, Vince Russo is 60 years old, and he can still cut a motherfucker of a promo. Like that, what he to remember what he had to say and how to do it. He didn't stumble. He didn't nothing. I think, like I said, if you don't appreciate, like, obviously everybody has their own bad and good ideas. Like, obviously Vince has had bad ideas. Both Vinces, Vince McMahon, Vince Russo. But you have to appreciate the contributions he's had. And like I said, for 60 years old, whether he wants to advertise that or not, that's how old he is. And for him to ramble off this promo without, he didn't stutter, he didn't stumble, he did nothing. So kudos to him. And again, thank you to him for, shouting us out. And, like I said, hopefully he wasn't BSing when he said he listened. Hopefully he did check it out and listen, and he liked it and said some nice things about us. And hopefully you guys feel the same way. And, maybe in the future we'll have, some guests or, something like that. And maybe we'll get to that point. But without word of mouth and without spreading the podcast and making it bigger, we can't have that. So again, thank you to the fans who've been with us since day one. Thank you to the fans that are new, that have now listened to what would be their second or even their first episode at this point. We hope you like it. We hope you follow us. We hope you keep it going. And yeah, like Mongo said, tell your friends.
Absolutely. That's the best thing you can do, is just tell people. Word of mouth advertising is better than any paid advertising that we could, do. So again, I just want to, echo those sentiments. Thank you to everybody. If you want to check out that Vince Russo promo and shout out for us, just go to our Facebook page and Twitter page. It's posted there. It's excellent. And, he cuts a really hell of a promo. So again, thank you, Vince, for doing that. We certainly appreciate it. And again, we appreciate you guys for listening, and we hope that you will tune us in next Saturday at 5 for AEW Fighter Fest 2019. Have a good week. We will see you next Saturday. Until then, I'm Tim Kurt.
I'm Roland Fulis. He's on mute.
He's on mute at the end of the show.
Yeah.
And I'm Mongo, and I was on mute. Welcome to being a jackass.
And this is Wrestling with Wrestling Past and Present.
bro.
I hope you're all having a nice day.